The energy in the Tesla event hall was electric. Engineers, investors, and fans filled every seat. Their eyes locked onto the stage where Elon Musk stood. He wasn't just talking about Tesla's latest advancements. He was painting a vision of the future. A future where artificial intelligence would redefine the automobile industry. Every statement he made sent waves of excitement through the crowd, followed by thunderous applause. As he wrapped up his speech, he stepped back slightly, hands in his pockets, scanning the crowd with a knowing smile. Then, in his signature casual tone, he said, "All right, let's take some questions." The room fell silent for a split second before dozens of hands shot into the air. Engineers, investors, and tech enthusiasts, all eager for a moment with one of the greatest innovators of their time. Elon's gaze drifted over the crowd before stopping at the back of the hall. He pointed. A young woman stood up. She was different from the rest. No sleek business suit, no Tesla-branded t-shirt, just simple clothes and a well-worn notebook in her hand. Yet there was something striking about her presence, an unwavering determination in her eyes. She took a deep breath, steadying herself as the room's attention turned toward her.
Mr. Musk,
She began, her voice strong but laced with nerves.
my name is Evelyn. I'm 19 years old, from a small town. I built a robot in my garage using scrap parts. I don't have a degree or formal training, but I want to work at Tesla. Will you give me a job?
The room froze. Whispers spread through the audience. Some exchanged skeptical glances. A few even chuckled under their breath. A teenager, no credentials, no professional experience, standing here and asking one of the world's most influential tech leaders for a job? It sounded absurd. Elon raised an eyebrow, intrigued. He tilted his head slightly.
A robot? What does it do?
Evelyn hesitated for a moment, then smiled, her grip tightening around her notebook.
Right now, it can pick up objects and perform simple tasks. But I know I can make it better if I have the right resources.
The audience held its breath, waiting for Elon's response. Some expected him to dismiss her immediately. Others assumed he'd offer a polite, non-committal answer and move on. But Elon Musk wasn't like most people. He leaned forward slightly, his voice calm but filled with challenge.
You said you built it in your garage?
Evelyn nodded. A brief pause, then Elon smirked.
All right, here's the deal. Improve your robot to solve a real-world problem. Show me something impressive, and I'll consider giving you a job.
Gasps rippled through the crowd. This wasn't just an answer. It was a challenge. For a split second, Evelyn's breath caught in her throat. Then her eyes hardened with determination. Without hesitation, she replied.
Challenge accepted, Mr. Musk.
A wave of murmurs surged through the room. Some admired her courage. Others remained doubtful. Could she actually pull this off? What no one knew at that moment was that this was just the beginning. As the event wrapped up, Evelyn walked out of the Tesla hall, her heart pounding. Elon Musk's words echoed in her mind. This was her shot, her one chance to change everything. She returned home to her small town, where life moved at a different pace. No skyscrapers, no tech conferences, just quiet streets and familiar faces. Her house was small but warm, filled with memories of hard work and perseverance. But her real world, it was in the garage behind her house. Her workshop was nothing like Tesla's high-tech labs. There were no sleek machines, no cutting-edge equipment, just an old wooden table, cluttered with scattered wires, gears, and salvaged electronics. Shelves lined the walls, filled with scrap metal, broken motors, and discarded batteries she had collected from junkyards. And in the corner sat her robot, the one she had shown Elon Musk. It was rough, unfinished, it could barely pick up small objects, and its programming was basic at best. There was no way this version would impress Elon. It had to be better. much better. She sat at her desk, staring at it, the weight of the challenge pressing down on her. She whispered to herself,
How do I turn this into something Elon will notice?
Her family had always supported her, but they weren't wealthy. Her mother worked long hours as a nurse. Her father drove a taxi, struggling to make ends meet. They believed in her dreams, but money had always been tight. She had no access to expensive robotics kits, no formal engineering education. Everything she knew came from late nights watching YouTube videos, reading free online tutorials, and endless trial and error. And it wasn't just the lack of resources. She had been doubted her entire life. Neighbors would shake their heads when they saw her digging through discarded electronics.
You're wasting your time on junk.
They would say,
Get a real job.
even her friends didn't understand. Why don't you just work at a store? This robot stuff isn't going to pay the bills. But none of that mattered now. She had 30 days. 30 days to prove them all wrong. 30 days to take a pile of scrap and turn it into something groundbreaking. And she wasn't about to waste a single second. Evelyn knew that if she wanted to stand out, her robot had to solve a real-world problem. After days of brainstorming, the answer became clear: waste management. In her town, trash piled up in the streets because people didn't know how to separate recyclables from non-recyclables. If she could build a robot that could sort and recycle waste efficiently, it wouldn't just impress Elon Musk, it would help her entire community. With renewed determination, she threw herself into the project, working day and night in her garage. Her first challenge was materials. She didn't have money to buy expensive parts, so she scavenged junkyards, digging through piles of discarded electronics. Some days she found useful motors, sensors, or wires. Other days she came home empty-handed, frustration weighing on her. But she refused to give up. Her second challenge was coding. Making a robot move was one thing, making it think was another. She had to teach herself advanced programming to ensure her robot could recognize and sort different types of trash. Late into the night, she watched online tutorials, read coding forums, and tested lines of code, only to be met with endless errors. There were moments when she wanted to give up, when exhaustion and self-doubt crept in, but every time she reminded herself of Elon's words, "Show me something impressive." As the days passed, people in her neighborhood started noticing her spending more and more time in the garage. Some mocked her, shaking their heads. "Do you really think Elon Musk cares about some kid from this town? You're dreaming too big." Even her friends had their doubts. "Why don't you just get a job at a local store? This robot stuff isn't going to pay off." But Evelyn wasn't like them. She had something they didn't. A vision, a fire inside her that refused to be extinguished. One evening, as she struggled to fix a faulty motor, she heard a knock on the garage door. An elderly man stood there, his kind eyes filled with curiosity. "I've been hearing about your project," he said. "Do you need help?" He introduced himself as Mr. Harris, a retired engineer who had once worked on robotics. Evelyn hesitated at first, but soon found herself explaining her challenge. To her surprise, he didn't dismiss her. He understood exactly what she was trying to do. Over the next few days, he guided her, showing her how to optimize the motors and troubleshoot complex coding issues. With his help, Evelyn's robot began to take shape. It wasn't perfect yet, but it was starting to show real promise. As the deadline loomed, she worked harder than ever. Nights blurred into mornings as she tested, adjusted, and rebuilt. Sleep became a luxury she couldn't afford. Her garage transformed into her entire world, time slipping away unnoticed. 3 days before the deadline, she finally saw it, the breakthrough she had been waiting for. Her robot successfully sorted trash into recyclables and non-recyclables during a test run. It wasn't just working, it was efficient. She stepped back, barely believing it. A triumphant smile spread across her face as she whispered,
Elon Musk, you're gonna see this.
But she knew her journey wasn't over yet. There was still one lingering question. Would it work perfectly in front of Elon and the Tesla team? As the day of the presentation approached, the nerves hit her harder than ever. Standing in her garage, she stared at the robot. It looked ready, but she knew looks didn't matter. Performance did. It had to function flawlessly. After weeks of struggle, her robot could now sort trash into 3 categories: recyclable, non-recyclable, and organic waste. It wasn't perfect, but it worked well enough to make a real difference. She traced her fingers over its frame, murmuring,
"You're going to prove everyone wrong."
Even with everything in place, fear gnawed at her. What if it breaks down in front of Elon? What if all this work is for nothing? The thought of failure loomed over her, but she forced herself to push those doubts aside. She spent the final 2 days rehearsing her presentation, making sure she could explain her robot's purpose with clarity and confidence. Her family helped, pretending to be the audience. Her mother, always her biggest supporter, squeezed her hand.
You've worked so hard, Evelyn. No matter what happens, we're proud of you.
On the morning of the event, Evelyn carefully packed her robot, checking and double-checking every detail. She dressed simply but professionally, a white shirt, black pants, and neatly tied hair. It wasn't about appearances, but she wanted to present herself with confidence. As she stepped outside, neighbors gathered to watch her leave. Some looked impressed, while others remained skeptical. A woman murmured,
Let's see if Elon Musk even remembers her.
Evelyn didn't respond. She had learned how to block out negativity. Arriving at the Tesla campus, she took a deep breath. The place was buzzing with activity. Engineers, executives, media representatives, everything felt overwhelming. Yet, she held her head high. This was it. This was her moment. Evelyn stepped onto the stage, her heart pounding as she carried her robot in her hands. The Tesla auditorium was packed with engineers, executives, and media representatives. The polished professionals surrounding her made her feel like an outsider, but she refused to let that shake her. She held her head high. In the front row, Elon Musk sat watching her closely. The same man who had issued her a challenge just weeks ago. Now, he was waiting to see she could prove herself. Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward and faced the crowd.
"Good afternoon."
She began, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins.
3 weeks ago, I stood in this very room and told Mr. Musk that I built a robot in my garage. He challenged me to make it solve a real-world problem. Today, I'm here to show you what I've created.
She placed her robot on the demonstration table and powered it on. The room fell silent, anticipation thick in the air. Evelyn set up a small pile of trash, plastic bottles, paper, and food waste, then stepped back as her robot came to life. Its mechanical arms scanned the items using the basic AI system she had programmed. Slowly but surely, it began sorting the waste into separate bins. The audience leaned forward, watching intently. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't the most advanced machine they had ever seen, but it worked. One by one, the items were placed in the correct bins, and then, as the final piece of trash was sorted, the room erupted in applause. Relief flooded Evelyn's body. She had done it. She glanced at Elon, who gave her a nod and a slight smile. But before she could fully breathe in the moment, a loud clicking noise rang out. The applause stopped. Her robot froze mid-motion. Her heart plummeted. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Some people shook their heads in disappointment. She could hear the whispers. She tried, but she's not ready for this level. Panic surged through her, but before she could react, Elon stood up and walked toward the stage. For a split second, she thought he was going to call off the demonstration. Instead, he looked her straight in the eye and asked,
You know what caused the problem?
Evelyn swallowed hard, forcing herself to think. Then she nodded.
"It's the motor. It overheated because the load was too heavy."
Without hesitation, Elon grabbed a tool from the nearby table and handed it to her. Fix it, he said simply. Her hands trembled as she opened the robot's casing. She had replaced faulty motors countless times in her garage, but this time was different. The world was watching. Her every move felt magnified. Minutes stretched into what felt like an eternity, but she didn't let the pressure break her. She swapped out the overheated motor with the spare she had brought, recalibrated the system, and closed the casing. Taking a deep breath, she restarted the robot. It whirred back to life. The robot resumed its task, sorting through the remaining waste faster than before. The audience erupted into cheers. This time, the applause didn't stop. Evelyn let out a breath she didn't realize she had been holding. A wide smile broke across her face as she looked up at Elon. He clapped and stepped onto the stage beside her.
That's what I like to see.
He said, his voice carrying over the applause.
Someone who doesn't give up when things go wrong.
Turning to face the audience, he continued,
Evelyn has done something incredible today. She's proven that innovation doesn't require a fancy lab or a degree. It just takes passion and determination.
Then he turned back to her.
You've earned your place at Tesla, but more than that, I want to help you develop this robot into something that can change the world.
Tears welled up in Evelyn's eyes as the audience roared in approval. She had done it! Against all odds, she had taken a challenge from one of the most brilliant minds in the world and won. Her journey was just beginning. And for anyone out there doubting themselves, wondering if they're capable of achieving something great, remember Evelyn's story. You don't need a degree. You don't need expensive resources. You just need passion, determination, and the courage to take the first step. If you believe in your dreams, don't wait. Start now. Because the world isn't changed by those who wait for permission. It's changed by those who dare to try. Thank you for listening to our story between Elon Musk and the girl who never stopped overcoming difficulties, Evelyn. If you like Evelyn, press 1 in the comment, but if you feel the story is not good, leave a comment number 0 so I can improve it. Thank you for watching the video. Remember to subscribe to the channel and press the notification bell to watch more motivational videos.